Welcome to my podcast, Senior to Seniors, where I dive into the stories of seniors, explore their unique experiences, discuss the real issues facing seniors today, and introduce you to those assisting seniors and beyond in their senior journey. I have the privilege to talk with some of the most interesting people in the world impacting the senior community today. My name is Jim Mazziotti. I've been a realtor for 33 years and am a national speaker, real estate coach, and an author. And my goal is to pay it forward to those that I work with. Today, I'm especially excited about the interview and this senior to senior show that I'm doing. And I'm introducing you today to BP Greycastle. And he's not just an accomplished author, but also a keen observer of human nature, creativity, and the intricate tapestry of life. With a unique blend of insight and imagination, he's captivated readers with his thought-provoking works. Today, we'll be diving into his book, Your Name and Colors, Key to Your Beauty, Career, Personality, Romance, and Success. And in this fascinating exploration, Greycastle reveals how our names and the colors associated with them can impact various facets of our lives, from how we perceive ourselves to how others perceive us. It's a compelling journey into the connections between identity, personal growth, and the world around us. So join me as we chat with BP Greycastle about his inspirations, the process behind crafting his illuminating guide, and how understanding the power of names and colors can unlock new possibilities in our lives. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. BP, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
So I've got to tell you, I have enjoyed your book, and I encourage everyone who is watching this on YouTube and or listening on the various podcast platforms to grab a copy of your book called Your Name and Colors, The Key to Your Beauty, Career, Personality, Romance, and Success. And I've loved looking through it. There's a lot in this book, BP. You've done so much research and are certainly an expert on this. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got started on this journey.
Well, when I came back from Vietnam, I took up the GI Bill and I went to junior college. And I've always been interested in clothes and styles and things like that. And I took a course at this junior college that was history of costume, fashion art, tailoring. So at the same time I was going and taking those classes, I went to work at a store called New York Fabrics right down the street from the college.
Okay.
And one day some gal came in and she told me about a book about colors, about people's names and colors, and by Roland T. Hunt. And so I went and got that book and read it, and it was very interesting. And it kind of got me started on researching how our names and colors affect us. And I took it much farther than what he had, produced. And I started to notice certain people's names were attuned to certain careers. And then I start remembering all the different people I had, friends that I'd known in the past and people I'd met. And I start noticing these different correlations between their personalities and their name and the different letters in their name that align to different colors. If you go to my website and you look at the video, it's not one of those long videos that go on and on.
Yeah.
It gives you a general description of how everything works. And on somewhere in the video, it shows the letter color chart of the English alphabet and all the different letters that are attuned to certain colors.
Mm-hmm.
For example, O, H, and V are flesh letters. I've changed all the other color people, experts will say that the seventh color of the spectrum is a blue, purple, indigo. No, I researched it, and through different people that I've interviewed, they always pick the flesh versus a blue, purple, and their names correlate with those H, O, and V letters. But so, and the purple letters are B, I, P, and W's, red letters are C, J, Q's, and X, and it goes on and on with a different color. So anyway, the more I started researching it, the more data start piling up. And in my book, and you can see a couple of examples on the video on my website, for example, 95% of your most famous physicists that have won the Nobel Peace Prize in Physics since it started, since 1902 to present, are what I call purple spiritual people. People whose first or last name start with either B, I, P, or W, like Einstein, Isaac Newton. Now, in Einstein's last name, the E is silent. And anytime a letter is silent in your name, you do not count it. And you have to analyze your name phonetically. So in my book, I tell people, do not skip and analyze your name phonetically. And also, there's different names, they don't sound phonetically the way they're spelled. For example, the name Carol, a lady's name Carol. That C actually phonetically sounds to a K.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you look on, I think it's page 22 or 25 on that book you're holding, you'll see the letter color chart, that a K is an orange letter, whereas a C is a red letter. So that C doesn't sound to a C, so you have to analyze it as a K. But let me explain how this all works. Okay. Every time someone calls your name, you're receiving subliminal color wavelength vibrations that are going into your inner ear cochlea gland that has crystals in your inner ear. Then it's sent to your thalamus gland of your brain, which I call the grand central station gland of the brain. Endocrinologists will call it the relay station. It's where we get our information from our different centers, except for sight. So then it sends it to your pituitary, and your pituitary gland sends out different messages to your other endocrine gland centers to release certain hormones. But anyway, okay, so it's a proven fact we have water all through our body. It's a proven fact that we have crystals in our inner ear and in our brain. Okay. So when's the only time you see a rainbow? So when it rains out and there's a watery mist in the air and crystals in the air. Or you can take your water hose and you can spray your water hose and create a rainbow. Or you can take one of those crystals and refract the different sunlight into different colors. So it becomes a no-brainer. We have the ability to send and receive color wavelength vibrations. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I can't see colors coming off when somebody's calling my name. Well, look at your cell phone. If you were to take a picture of your room right there, or if you had a dog next to you or whatever, you could take that picture and send it to somebody, let's say all the way to New York, or maybe even England, or across the ocean. Now, in order for that picture to get there, it has to leave your phone invisibly. There's no wires attached to a cell phone. You know, it comes out of your phone invisibly. It goes through the walls of your home or your building, whether it's plaster or cement or steel, wood. It goes through your building, travels 2, 3, 5,000 miles, however far, and then it has to go through maybe another person's building. It penetrates that building and ends up on that person's cell phone, and the picture is perfect, colors and everything. So
Hmm.
that shows you how strong invisible um, wireless wavelengths, can occur. So that makes it a little more believable that we can send different color wavelength vibrations to each other.
Hmm.
The other thing I forgot, it's a proven fact that all sounds give off a color wavelength
Hmm.
vibration.
Hmm.
So all the different letters in your name have different color wavelength vibrations they're attuned to. So
Wow.
once I know a person's name, I know all their personality, character traits, and talents, both positive and negative, of all their 7 centers. Now we need to explain what the 7 centers are.
Hmm.
In my book, I have 3 charts. Okay. The Hindu philosophers call them the chakra centers.
Hmm.
Now, they start talking about the chakra centers 1,500 years ago. Now, if you look at the charts in my book, you're going to see that the 7 chakra centers are located right in the same areas as your 7 major endocrine glands.
Hmm.
Now, I call the 7 centers spiritual, mental, vocal, physical, control, emotional, and sexual. Okay.
Yeah.
So my theory is once you're receiving your subliminal color wavelength vibrations, they're getting redirected to these 7 endocrine gland areas, or if you want to call them the 7 chakra centers or the 7 personality centers. It's all the same, basically.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So, um, and the other part of my theory is now I'm not an endocrinologist, so if anyone has a health problem or thinks they have any problems with their endocrine glands, they have to go see a doctor. This is
Hmm.
just my theory.
Hmm.
Well, besides saying that your name affects your hormones you're releasing from these different centers. Also, let me explain the functions of these 7 centers.
Okay.
Okay, your spiritual center up at the top, what the Hindus call the crown chakra at the top of your head there.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and the endocrine gland that's associated with that would be the pineal endocrine gland. And so the functions of that center is where we get our genius, our imagination. There you go. Yeah, that's a crown chakra up there. And the other chart on the book would show you the pineal endocrine gland in the endocrine gland page.
Hmm.
Um, um, the functions of that center is where we get our imagination, our creativity, our genius. I believe everybody has the ability to be a genius. What it takes is someone operating and cultivating that center a lot and having faith. That's also, I call it the faith center, faith that something can be invented or something can be solved. If you don't have faith that something can be accomplished, well, you're never going to accomplish it. You're going to
Right.
block it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
You're closed-minded. Okay. So um, I also call it our moral uh, center of right and wrong, or you can call it your religious center, where your moral personality lies. Okay,
Okay.
people that have cultivated the spiritual center or their pineal endocrine gland or their crown chakra, those are some of the character traits they will project and they'll succeed in. They'll be very wholesome, very moral, very inventful, very creative. Now, some people cultivate some of those character traits and not others. Some cultivate all of them. Okay, now your neck center is right here in between your eyes. They call it the brow chakra. It's where your your pituitary endocrine gland is, or what I call your mental center. Your
Okay.
center of people that cultivate that center are usually very common sense, very practical in their decisions, whether it be with money or what job they should go for. Um, it's our analytical center of when we figure out what the practical solution to whatever we're trying to solve is.
Hmm.
So people that cultivate that center are more of the intellectual, analytical, common sense type of persons. They usually won't take big chances with money or their job. They may be the type that go to work for 40 years at one job and they're that type of person.
Hmm.
Okay. Now your vocal center at the base of your throat is where you get your vocal abilities if you want to be a singer or ventriloquist or something like that. But it's also our center of being harmonious with ourself or with other people, and to organize ourself, mind, body, and soul. And then our life becomes more clarified, we have it all together, mind, body, and soul. It's also the center of being a good organizer, organizing your room or anything in life,
Hmm.
that you have to
Okay.
organize.
Okay.
So people that cultivate that center are either singers or ventriloquists or people that use their voice, or people that are very harmonious with other people or themselves. They're not the type that tend to argue with people. They'll say, well, I don't want to argue. I want to just, bypass that and be a harmonious person. Okay. Then, or everything in their life will be pretty organized, whether it be their home or their job or, everything on their desk. It'll be nice and neat and organized. Okay. So those are the type of people that operate and cultivate off that center a lot.
Okay.
Okay. Now your heart center here in your chest, where your heart is, that's
Hmm.
where your major thymus endocrine gland is, your immune gland. Uh, it's what I also call the physical center. People that have cultivated and operated that center in a positive way will be very warm, kind, caring, compassionate, forgiving, truthful. They'll also maybe be very physical. Weightlifters, runners, athletes,
Hmm.
people that exercise all the time physically. So those are some of the type of people that have cultivated and operated off that center. Okay. Now the next one down is your solar plexus chakra center. It's where your adrenals endocrine gland is, what they call the fight or flight gland.
Okay.
It's our power center. Um, I also call it the control center in my book. People that
Hmm.
operate and cultivate that center are very empowered, very in control, very dignified, very formal, uh, very you can say corporate, business-like, uh, and they have control over just about everything in their life. For
Hmm.
example, there's a lot of people that have bad habits, like let's say smoking or drugs or alcohol or spending too much money. So stop and think about it. What do they need to do? They need to control those vices. So in my, you'll see on my video in my website where I say, in most cases, people that have those bad habits are making their decisions emotionally. The next center we'll talk about. And they haven't cultivated their control center and operated off that center. So what they have to do, have to start operating off that center. And what my theory is, the part I haven't really got into yet, is depending on which one of your centers you operate off of, I believe you're releasing hormones on a regular basis from that particular endocrine gland, and you're becoming addicted to your own hormones depending on which hormonal center it is. And
Okay.
that's why it's so hard for you to change your habits.
Hmm.
So in order, people say, well, how do I start cultivating my control center and quit some of these bad habits? Well, first of all, you're learning right now that you have those seven centers, and we haven't talked about all of them yet. But
Hmm.
you'll learn, you read my book or you consult with me, you learn that you have these seven centers. Once you're aware of something, then you become, you start realizing as you're going through all these decisions, hey, okay, I got a control center. I need to work on it.
Hmm.
So once you become aware you have these seven centers and what their functions are, then you can start to cultivate them, or you
Okay.
can
So
start to recognize you have them and you can
yeah,
use them.
it'd be almost for an athlete if you wanted to focus on a particular weakness, you would exercise that muscle in your arm
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you need to throw a shot put or
yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
might be.
exactly. Good example. Okay, so let's go down to the emotional center, which is down at the belly button. The Hindus call it the navel chakra. It's where your pancreas endocrine gland is. I call it your romantic, your emotional center, your contentment, your relaxed center. And I'll explain why I call it some of those names. Okay.
Hmm.
A person's never ever going to be content until they find a romantic soulmate. It's also called the soul center, and we hear this term soulmate.
Hmm.
Okay. So when a person finds a romantic soulmate, they become contented and they become more relaxed and um, and they're emotionally satisfied. My grandmother, she was an Italian lady that when she came to the United States, she couldn't speak any English, read any English, and she never could. But she was a very smart lady in very basic ways.
Hmm.
She used to have a lot of goats, and she used to walk around town with the goats. Everybody in town used to call her the goat lady. And but she told my mom and my aunt, and they relayed this to me. She says the one thing that people really want in this world, and it's to be
Hmm.
loved by somebody and be able to love someone else. So
Hmm.
once you find a good romantic soulmate, then I believe the pancreas endocrine glands start to release these positive hormones where you feel very relaxed, very contented. Okay. Now, the other way that you can use your emotional center color is if you decorate a room in your home in your emotional center color. When you walk in that room, if you have any stress in your life, and a lot of people have a lot of stress in their life nowadays, the stress will just start to peel off you,
Hmm.
and you become very relaxed and more contented. Very good color to use to help you sleep too. Okay, so people that cultivate their emotional center will make a lot of their decisions emotionally. They can be very romantic. They will project more their feminine personality character traits. Um, and so those are the type that cultivate and operate on that center.
Okay.
Okay, now let's go down to the next center, the last center.
Hmm.
The Eastern philosophers call it the root chakra. And the endocrinologists, for women, it's ovaries. For men, it's a testes.
Hmm.
Okay. And I call it our sexual center.
Okay.
It's where we get our sexual hormones and personality. But I also call it your grounding, your survival center. And the reason why I call it that is, let's say somebody loses their job and their cars broke down and they don't have money to pay their rent. They're in a real critical situation. where they have to forget about everything else. They can't worry about going having lunch with a friend of theirs or going out to a movie. They've got to ground themselves and say, what do I have to do to survive this situation? And just concentrate on that, how to survive this bad situation. Okay. Uh, a lot of people have heard the expression, that person is sexy in an earthy way.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of women tell me that, like, uh, Willie Nelson is sexy in an earthy way.
Right.
So people that are very earthy and gone through a lot of very critical situations in their life and had to survive a lot of tough situations, they become kind of earthy from all those experiences of going through that. And um, so Willie Nelson probably went through his fair share of tough situations. So just as he's just one example. So our sexual center is not only where we get our sexual impulses and also to reproduce, have children, or just have the sex.
Hmm.
It's also our center to survive tough situations when we have to. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now getting back to, like I say, when I counsel someone, I ask them, okay, now that I've given you the descriptions of those 7 centers, which ones do you think you cultivated and operated the most? And also, which ones do you think you need to cultivate more?
Hmm.
And then we kind of go from there. Then I ask them what their favorite colors are. And by them telling me what their favorite colors, that automatically starts to tell me which center they've cultivated and operated off the most. And the other thing I do is I look to see if somebody is like a double orange spiritual person or a double blue emotional center person, or these different. See if somebody's a double to any one of their centers. Sometimes people can be like a triple to one of their centers, and that plays a big effect on them operating and cultivating that center. The other thing I always ask too is their general spiritual, the first letters in their first and last name, or their spiritual center colors, where their general spiritual nature is, their imagination, their enthusiasm, are very good choices for their career and what their general personality is like. The other last thing I look at is if a person has one particular color attuned to like 3 or 4 of their centers. So that plays a major effect on them operating off the character attributes of that color. Like if somebody has the orange color attuned to 3 or 4 of their centers, then I know they're probably pretty creative, pretty warm and kind and caring. That's the color attributes of the orange spectrum. Orange spiritual people are usually the warmest, kindest, and most creative of all the color type.
Okay.
Now, getting into the careers, I show that 95% of your most famous lawyers, architects, physicists, writers, singers, uh, basketball players, pro quarterbacks are because of a certain color type.
Yeah,
It's all documented facts in my book.
it
It's
is.
it's historical facts. It cannot be changed. Nobody can argue with it. Uh, like in my video, and what I think I mentioned earlier is if you look at the list of the Nobel Peace Prize in physics, you're going to see since it started in 1902 to present, about 90 to 95% of them are what I call purple spiritual people. Uh, Scientists whose names are started with B, I, P, and W's. I show that 90% of your most famous singers are orange vocal center people. Remember, orange is the color of being creative, so they're creative from their vocal center.
Hmm.
Um, so I the list of careers in my book are it's like 30 or 40 different careers.
It
So
is, yeah.
once I know a person's name, I know I can give them 3 or 4 of their best choices for careers.
Hmm.
Once I know a person's name, I can tell them who their romantic soulmate should be. Now, the way that works is, um, let's take the name Daryl. Okay. Your
Hmm.
power color, which I talked about before, where your adrenals are, your power center. Okay. Your power center letter in your name is before a syllable break. Daryl or Don Old hangs on the end with the Daryl hangs on the R, and then it breaks off of it. So Robert, the O, Robert, and then it breaks away on the B. Okay.
Hmm.
So let's say you have a Daryl, a gentleman by the name of Daryl, and he meets a woman by the name of Sally Smith. Okay. Orange letters are D, K, R, and Y. So Daryl has the orange letter attuned to his power center. Sally Smith does not have any orange letters in either her first or last name. Remember, they're D, K, R, and Y. Sally Smith. No orange letters. So the color that you don't have in your name becomes your softest emotional center color. Okay?
Hmm.
Uh, so, in other words, when Sally Smith comes in contact with this Daryl, he's going to have a very powerful effect on her emotions because he's the orange power and she's a feminine, soft. So she's going to be really attracted to him emotionally,
Hmm.
romantically,
Hmm.
and that's basically the way it works. Um, in my book, I show about 20 celebrities that have this same combination that have been together a long time. And it's
Yeah,
very well known that celebrities, a lot of times, they don't stay together for
yeah,
very
yeah,
long.
yeah,
And
exactly.
it's the most powerful feeling there is. Love is the most powerful feeling in the universe. So, as I was telling you before, when you're in a good romantic relationship, you are contented.
Yeah,
It's the most content feeling you can get.
yeah.
So, um, when I do somebody's consultation, I will, or if they read my book, and
Hmm.
remember, they cannot skip anywhere in there, otherwise they'll analyze their name wrong. They have to do it phonetically. If a letter is silent, you don't count it. Um, so, and Einstein is another good example. His E in his first letter of his name doesn't sound. The first letter
Hmm.
sounds the I. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. And there's other examples I give in my book.
Sure.
Okay. So so you can use your emotional center color for romantic connections, for decorating your room, to release stress, and so it's a very powerful center to know what colors you should use.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the other thing is, a lot of time I've had a lot of women that I'm counseling, and we determine that their names between them and their husbands aren't a soulmate connection. They'll say, "Well, what should I do? Get a divorce?" And I say, "No, just come up with a nickname that creates that chemistry." See, what we're talking about, we're hormonal creatures. That's what we are, these 7 endocrine glands, these hormonal creatures that are releasing different hormones all the time. And so if someone were to say, come up to me and say, "What are human beings? Can you describe them?" I would say, "Well, they're creatures that release sexual hormones. They're creatures that release creative hormones, emotional hormones, physical
Hmm.
hormones." So, um, and so learning about your 7 centers is, and how the colors affect those 7 centers. it's going to open up all kinds of new knowledge for you.
Yeah.
What colors to decorate your home
Hmm.
to stimulate those seven centers? What colors to wear to project and stimulate those seven centers?
Hmm.
Um, you can use it. Let's say you have grandchildren. I know your program's about people 50 years and older.
Sure.
Um, you
Hmm.
can use it to help your grandchildren in their career decide their career choices. Um, Also, a lot of people 50 and older, it's great for new hobbies. If they want to be an artist or they want to study something else, maybe and sometimes people want to change their career even at that age.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and if they're not in the right career, they'll learn what their best career choices are if they want to change them, or just for a hobby.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure.
uh, and so you can use it that way. There's so many ways um to use this philosophy. What I say all the time, your name affects every single aspect of your life. And I mean
Hmm.
every single aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when people consult with you, first of all, I want to make sure we know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me right now, so I don't forget. I'll put it in the notes. But
Oh,
how do
okay.
people get?
Okay. They go to my website, namecolorology.com.
Okay,
You
name,
have to use it.
colorology.
Yeah, you have to use a name, NAME, colorology.com. Some people will just say, "Oh, this guy he talks about colorology," and they'll go to colorology website, which has something to do with the hair coloring. So they have to type in the whole word, namecolorology.com.
Okay,
They'll go in there and they can either buy my book or get consultation from me.
okay,
And I've actually split up the consultation into four different areas. Some people just want to consult for their career.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Some want for romance.
Mm-hmm.
Some want for decorating their home. Some want for their wardrobe. So if you consult for all of them, it's $160.
Okay,
If if you consult for just one of them, it's only $40. It's the best deal you can get. If you were to go hire a interior designer or a career consultant, you're going to pay a lot more.
sure.
I can do it. I can do it right from a telephone conversation, and it's automatic to me. I've got 30 or 40 years of this in my head where once somebody tells me their name, I know all
Yeah.
I can tell them just about anything right off the bat.
Well,
So
for those listening, looking through your credits and things, and places where you've spoken,
yeah,
people that you've spoken to, some of the places where you've been a speaker or presenter, are the Davis Medical Center in San Francisco, or the University of California Medical Center in San Francisco. You've been a speaker presenter at the Golden Globe Celebrities Gift Show in Beverly Hills, California. So you have a wide range of people that you've spoken to, people that reach out to you for your credibility,
mm-hmm.
exactly what you're doing. And to me, it's a new science to me. It's something I haven't given thought to before. I guess maybe I have. I suppose every time you get dressed, you give thought to it, right? Eh, eh,
Yeah,
Right, but not scientifically do it.
mm-hmm.
Sticking to one fun question I want to ask: How might this affect somebody's golf game? Have you ever been asked that? Uh,
Their golf game.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, well, uh, I hadn't answered that one before, but yeah.
I didn't mean to stump you,
What?
but
No, no, that's okay. Once you know what your physical center color is,
okay,
I'm glad you asked that. Um, it'll tell you, for example, if somebody's like a red physical center person, where after a syllable break, after your syllable break is your physical center colors. Um, that person, a red physical center person will be very, usually they can be very impulsive physically, and they might need to be more patient. So
Right.
they may be making their golf swing a little too fast, a little too impulsive
Mm.
versus setting themselves. Well, let me give you an example too. In my book, I show where uh, if you were, you can Google this, 25 top pro quarterbacks
Okay.
are, where I show in my book, are green spiritual people or green physical center people. Green is a color of balance, poise, and control. What does a quarterback need to be successful?
Those three
He's
things.
he's got 285-pound or 350-pound guys coming at him trying to slam him down to the ground.
Mhm.
Plus, he also has to view the whole field, or whether this receiver is open or the other one, or whether he needs to get out of the pocket. It takes, like you just said, all three:
Mhm.
poise, control, and balance out the whole field, and and looking at the whole where everybody's at. So uh, let me give you a list. Now remember, green letters are F, M, and T. F, M, and T.
Okay.
Okay. Green spiritual people are people whose first or last name start with one of those letters.
Okay.
Tom Brady, Joe Montana, the M in his last name, the
Mhm.
T with Tom. Patrick Mahomes, the M starts as, and Terry Bradshaw, Fran Tarkenton,
Yeah.
Warren Moon, Troy Aikman, Brett Favre, Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, and they're Manning brothers. So in my list I show in my book, the top 10 people that have been the most successful and famous in all these career fields I list are what I'm saying they are as far as the color thing goes.
Yeah.
So so uh I can tell you this about, you have to be poised to be a good golfer. Yeah, your swing. Now I've learned just myself that what I was doing wrong one time, I was straddling the where the ball is put on the tee.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then I heard somebody say, "No, you put your right foot up at the front, your left foot in." And boy, could I drive straight after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, knowing your name. Okay, another example I give, as far as your physical center goes, is I showed that 90% of your most famous basketball players are orange physical center people: Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and the list goes on and on. And so these facts can't be questioned.
Yeah.
It's
Can't dispute.
documented proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, let me ask a couple questions that might apply most to seniors, those people that
yeah,
are, most likely to be watching us today. And your book suggests that colors and names can influence romantic compatibility. And you talked a little bit about this with the seven centers. But for seniors looking for love, possibly after the loss of a spouse or a late life divorce, how can they use their name's color code to attract the right partner for them?
to attract the right partner.
Hmm. Yes.
Okay, they just have to find out, what I explained in earlier is, how their name is compatible, as far as, uh, does one of them have the power color that is the same attuned to the other person's emotional center color.
Okay.
Like a blue power person can really attract a blue emotional person, and a green power person will attract the green emotional person. It's a chemistry. What we're talking about is chemistry. The way I explain what love is, and you probably never heard this, and your listeners have probably never heard this explained this way. What love is a positive pancreas endocrine gland um, secretion. Remember, I said the emotional center is your romantic center,
Hmm.
where your emotions are at. So I thought you were going to ask me, um, when a couple like loses someone in their family.
Hmm.
A lot of times you see them break up. After that, their life falls apart. But you're just saying find a new one, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what they have to do, they have to learn, go in there and read my book and find out what their power color is and what the other person's emotion center color. And in my book, I listed 20 different celebrities where I show the best way is when they both have that situation, where they both control each other's emotions. Now, a lot of people don't like the word control, but really you do want to control the other person's emotions in a good way, not a negative way.
Hmm.
So some people they'll say to me, I don't want to control anybody. And I say, well, in a way, yes, you do, in a positive way. You want to control that other person's emotions. Or another way of expressing it is you want to have a very powerful effect on their emotions. Um, let's look at your name for a second. I don't think you have any BIP or W letters in your name. I mean, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. DKRY.
Nope.
DKRY sounding letters in your name, right?
Nope.
Okay. Well, that would make you an orange emotional center person. Remember, the colors that you don't have in your name become your emotional center colors. Some people have one, some have two or three. Um, so if you were to meet a orange power woman,
Hmm.
let's think of a name. Carol. Care hangs on the R and breaks on the OL. Carol.
Hmm.
Well, remember, orange letters are D, K, R, and Y. So she would have a very strong effect on your emotions. Now, I haven't asked you if you have children to call you dad. That would bring in a lot of orange letters. But let's say you didn't have any children and you didn't have any names that had any orange letters in it. You would look for a woman that was an orange power person, and she would have a very strong emotional romantic effect on you.
Hmm.
And and then you would have to figure out her name. Let's say her name is Carol Smith. Um, I'm trying to. Okay, she doesn't have any blue letters, which are NG and U's.
Okay.
So you would have to be a blue power person to control her emotionally. And remember, getting back to women ask me, well, since our names aren't a soul connection, should I get divorced? No, you just have to, after reading my book and or consults with me, we'll come up with some good nicknames you start calling each other on a regular basis. And then you're going to start getting those color messages to these different centers that are going to start changing your chemistry, your feelings.
Hmm.
So it
Yeah.
it it works that way. Now, also, when you analyze your name, or I analyze somebody's names, I have to take into all the names they're hearing. If they have children that call them dad all the time, they're getting also that dad, 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 dad,
Right.
or mother, mom, mommy, mother.
Uh-huh.
So we have to figure in all the different subliminal color wave vibrations that they're receiving and what names they're really called. Another example, too, is let's say the name Robert. Somebody's official name is Robert, but
Hmm.
they're called Bob all the time.
Yeah.
You got to use the Bob, not the Robert.
Right. Yeah. And when we talked earlier, because my name is James, but no one ever calls me James.
Okay, yeah, you
Right.
go by
Yeah.
Jim if you're called Jim all the time.
Yeah.
So you have
It's,
to go by what you're actually hearing. That's what you're hearing.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's a subliminal wavelengths, color wavelength
Yeah.
vibrations you're receiving.
Well, let me ask you one other question. We're kind of running out of time here, but many people that I know that are in their later years feel stuck and they don't know what's next in their life. Uh,
Mhm.
can colorology help someone find um, a new
Na-
career, a new hobby, redefine their personal brand in retirement? But I think you've already covered it. It can. It really
yeah,
identifies.
absolutely 100%. Let's say someone has been a um, an engineer their whole life. And, they've gotten to the point where they retired or they don't want to do anything. Let's say they want to be a writer. And, when we get older, we're not as physical. So, you need a hobby or something or a new career that, you don't
Yeah.
have to be so physical. So, and they say, I want to be a writer. I've always kind of wanted to be a writer. I say, start calling your name William or Bob. I show in my book that 95% of your most famous writers are purple spiritual people, people whose first or last names start with BIPs or W. William Shakespeare, William Penn, Barbara Taylor Bradford, uh, BIP and W. So I would tell them, or I would tell them to operate off what center purple is attuned to. Some people can write emotionally, and some people are more creative the way they write.
Uh-huh.
So depending on where your purple is attuned to your one of your seven centers, we'll talk about that. And I'll say, well, right now with your name, you would be better off writing more emotional stuff, or you would be better off writing more creative, inventful like stuff,
So
uh, or or
you can,
intellectual, wherever your purple is. But if somebody really wants to become a real good writer, um, I would tell them to become a purple spiritual center person or have a lot of purple letters in their name. And the reason why purple people are the best writers is purple is a color of being royal, very detail oriented, very civilized and cultured. Purple spiritual people are a little more cultured and civilized than most people. And so it fits that saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. So if a purple spiritual people gets in an argument with somebody else, instead of maybe punching that person, they'll go home and write that person a letter in a more of a civilized culture manner of why that person was cruel to them or was wrong or whatever. They're doing it in a more formal, civilized, cultured way.
wow.
So
I wish there was more cultural, civilized ways on Facebook when people are responding to people.
yeah.
It certainly
Yeah.
isn't it, but
But what it all boils down to, the colors in your name determine your personality and your talents, and like we talked before, your career or who your romantic soulmate be. Now, I know one thing I forgot. If we got time,
sure.
okay. Uh, I advise people to read these books about near death experiences.
Okay.
Just about every single one I've read or YouTube. They have a lot on YouTube of people who talked about their near-death experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Every one of them talks about the colors in heaven.
Yeah.
They say there's more colors in heaven than there are here on earth. The colors are beautiful. They have feeling. They're beams of color and light up there. They almost all talk about colors.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do I believe my theory is a science, it's also has to do with the spiritual meanings of colors, the colors that are attuned to God's character attributes. If you're a compassionate person, that certain red will be one of your favorite colors and look good on and around you,
Right.
or stimulate you compassionately if you decorate your room in it. So the colors have their meaning, their character attributes. You just have to find out what they are, how they're attuned to your name, and what center they're attuned to. And it opens up all kinds of new possibilities for you. New hobbies for the older people, new
Right.
career. If they want to decorate their home to become more relaxed or more creative, all kinds of things.
Well, you've opened up the door
Yeah,
to, people to be able to think beyond uh, what they've known, but really in this case that they may have never heard before.
yeah. Well,
So,
the Hindu philosophers start writing about the seven chakra centers 1,500 years ago.
mhm,
Western Medical Society uh, first started the discovery of these seven endocrine glands back in 1841.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that, a lot of people, Western thinking people will say, "Oh, those chakra people, their religion's different than us. I'm not interested." Well, we're not talking about religion necessarily here. We're talking about your seven centers that everybody has, no matter where you're from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, it's so interesting.
yeah.
And so let me just cover a couple things
Okay.
before uh, for everybody. Make sure that if this is of interest to you, and I'm sorry you can't see this very well, but I'm
You
going
can go a little higher and they'll be able to see it, I
to
think.
kind of
Yeah.
disappears.
Uh,
There we go.
there you go. There you
Your
go.
name and colors, the key to your beauty, career, personality,
Romance and success.
and success.
Now, one last thing I'd like to get in if possible.
Please, please do.
People that have addictions, it's
Mm,
also very important for that. I talked about it earlier.
yeah.
So if you got a major problem, let's say you're drinking too much or spending too much money, you need to cultivate that control center. And a lot of people will say, let's say to quit smoking, it takes 6 months or a year or 3 months. Different experts say different amount of time. Well, if you think that you got to fight that urge to not smoke for the next 6 months, it becomes overwhelming in your mind. You're going to say, "Oh, I got to fight this for the next 6 months. Oh, that's too tough." And they give up. No, you don't do it that way. The way that I counsel people that have a bad addiction is just say, "Okay, can you quit for one day? Or can you quit for 3 or 4 hours?" And they'll usually then say, "Yeah, I can do that."
Mm-hmm.
And then I tell them, "Do that." And then maybe the next day do it again for a few hours. What you're doing every time you operate off your control center, you're starting to get in the habit of operating off of that. And I believe you're releasing hormones from that particular control center, and you're starting to become addicted to your control centers hormones, and then that'll become natural to you. And you start feeling better about operating off your center versus, let's say, your emotional center. A lot of people get emotional, say, "Oh, I got to have a cigarette."
Uh-huh.
You know, so,
Yeah.
but the more you tend to operate your control center, the more you become addicted to that center. So you just chip away at a bad addiction. Don't say, "Oh, I got to fight this for the next year."
Yeah.
That'll overwhelm you and you give up
And
usually.
it usually, yeah, that's the problem. It usually overwhelms people,
Yeah.
right? And they
Yeah.
can't deal with it.
Yeah.
So last thing is how people can get a hold of you, and they can go to your website at namecolorology.com,
Mhm.
and they can talk to you directly and work with you to figure out where they're going next
Yeah.
and whatever it might be. So, VP, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with me and those people that listen to this show. It's been really enjoyable. Uh,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Stick with me with just a second as I fade this out, and we'll talk soon, huh?
Okay. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for having me on. And you brought up some good questions. And usually when I'm on shows, um, the host will ask a question that I've never had before, and it makes me think a little bit more of how to, explain
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
those questions. So,
exactly. Well,
yeah.
thanks again. We'll talk, and I
Okay.
enjoyed this so much. Bye bye.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.